Chapter 55. Wednesday, 30th October. Began, baby. You're right on that one. Oh, yes, I can promise you that. The day you humiliated me is the day your nightmare began, although, strictly speaking, nightmare is the wrong word. You wake up from nightmares, you see. That's not going to happen. Bryce sat at his desk in his workshop, headphones on, listening to the interview, TweetDeck open in front of him in one of his computer screen. He continued to tap his keyboards while listening, multitasking. He got good at that in these past months, doing all kinds of stuff while listening all the time to what was happening with Red, sometimes smiling, sometimes getting angry. Nothing had made him so angry as the sound of Red and the doctor having sex. The sound she made, the noises, the gas, the swear words that came out of her mouth, all staccato as she climaxed. The same swear words as when she had climaxed with him, as if she had known he was listening and was doing this to taunt him. He exited TweetDeck. He loved the internet. It was so easy to be anonymous. He was anonymous in real life too. Creating an identity was easy, but it took physical work. Going around to apartment blocks and stealing from the communal mailbox, utility bills, driver's license, tax forms, and all the other kinds of personal stuff that arrived in buff envelopes. Then going through the registry of deaths in the public records office, finding names that match, but who had died young, too young to have ever applied for a driver's license or passports. He had 7 real identities: passport, driver's license, bank accounts, credit cards, all registered to different mailbox address in Brighton and London, as was his Land Rover. They were appointed an officer to look after Red. How sweet he was. What fun it might be to tie Red up and then let her watch him slowly cutting bits of PC puffet in front of her, teaching him not to meddle in private affairs of the heart. It would do the smug bitch Red some good to get a real taste of what he had in store for her. It would be worth all the pain she had put him through, she and her nasty family. If he could see the terror on her face, see it for a long time, hours, days, maybe weeks, as she begged for forgiveness, pleaded for him to come back, for everything to be how it was with them before, swore her undying love for him, undying love. He would like to hear those words so much in the moments before she died, but first he had work to do. He opened the animation program and set to work drawing a boat. The interview had come to an end. Red was going home. The boat was shaping nicely. He selected Rod Stewart's Sailing from Spotify and clicked to play. It was one of the Red favourite songs. He smiled, sailing, a life on the ocean wave, hi-ho, and maybe at death. He began a Google search of Admiralty charts for the English channel. Chapter 56. Wednesday, 30th of October. It was shortly after 8 on a damp October evening when Glenn Branson turned the unmarked car right at the bottom of the drive into Church Road. Anywhere here is fine, Red said. You sure I can drop you to your front door? Make sure you're safely home, he said. She liked the big, tall, gentle giant with his kind face. He was enough of a man-mountain to make her feel totally safe, but at the same time she sensed a vulnerability, a deep inner sadness about him. She made a couple of attempts at asking him about his personal life on the slow drive through to the rush hour traffic from the CID headquarters, but he'd maintain a total policeman-like focus on how she was to keep alert and safe. Thanks, but I need to do some food shopping. They were passing the blackened facade of the mini-mart, all boarded up and already stickered with apologetic notices to customers. Yeah, well, careful where you go. No more pyrotechnics, okay? She gave a wan smile, then pointed across the road to the Tesco superstore. If you can drop me there, she said. He flipped the right indicator. Door-to-door service for madam. As he pulled up, they noticed a scruffy, shaven-headed old lag of a villain in his late 40s lurking near the exterior rubbish bins, Jimmy West. He kept an eye on him, aware of the scam he would be getting up to, or removing a sale receipt from the bin, then going to the store, matching groceries up to the street and departing. But Jimmy West wasn't his problem right now. You're really kind, Red said, opening the door. Yeah, I know, Glenn grinned. She grinned back, on the verge of giving him a kiss goodbye, then hesitated, thinking that might not be proper. Instead, she gave him a wave of her hand and closed the door. Glenn continued grinning as he watched her enter the supermarket. She was an attractive lady. He'd seen the hesitation in her face. He'd have liked a kiss from her, he thought, rather a lot. He saw Wes move towards the bin. He hit the button to lower the passenger door window and leaned across and shouted, Evening, Jimmy. Doing a bit of shopping, are we? Wes looked around and frustrated for a minute. Then he recognized Glenn's face. Oh, evening, Sergeant Bisto. Branson, and Inspector now. What are you doing here? Oh, just passing. Good, then keep passing. Pass right along. West raised a finger, signaling his intention to oblige. Glenn sat there watching until the man was out of the car park and back on the street. There was a time, he realized, when he would have felt sorry for someone like Jimmy West, trapped in a spiral, if one of his own making. But just like every cop he had ever spoken to, a few years in the police force changed you, hardened you. You looked out for bad in people. You look for bad in people rather than the good, and you didn't often have to look too far to find it. But Red, his sense, had good in her. He felt her warmth. He drove out of the car park and pulled up on the opposite side of the road, waiting until she emerged from the store holding two carrier bags, keeping a discreet distance. He tracked her all the way to her flat and waited until he saw her safely inside before driving off back to Sussex House. Chapter 57, Wednesday, 30th of October. Red punched on the stairwell light, then climbed up warily, holding her two heavy Tesco bags. She stood still, nervous, on the landing, looked up along the corridor, checking behind her down the stairs before putting the bags down, pulling out her keys and carefully checking the hair she had stuck at the top of the door jamb. It was still in place. Relieved, she unlocked all three locks and went in, switched on the hall light and closing the door behind her, locked the deadbolts and pushed home the heavy-duty safety chain. Even so, she still waited for some moments, listening for any sounds. Outside, she heard the wail of a siren fading into the distance. She carried her bags along the short corridor, snapped on the lights of the panic room behind it, its reinforced door, and her bedroom light, and checking both rooms before looking in the bathroom and making her way through into the living kitchen area and dumping the bags on the floor. She took out the two bottles of Sauvignon Blanc and put one in the fridge and the other into the freezer compartment, then put away the milk, cheese, bread, blueberries, and grapes she had bought. Put the mixed salad on the table and ripped the packaging on the fish pie, which she then put into the microwave before setting the timer. The message light was winking on her answering machine, and she hit the play button, peeling off her coat. It was her mother. Why, she wondered, did her dear mother always phone her at home and leave a message there instead of phoning her mobile, which she carried with her all the time? She had told her 1,000 times, but it made no difference. Hi, darling, the forecast is good tomorrow, so your father and I are taking the train down to Chichester early in the morning to sail the boat back to Marina. If you can take the day off, join us. The fresh air might do you good. Yeah, Red thought glumly. A day out on the English Channel, freezing her butt off, eating soggy egg and tomato sandwiches and drinking warm beer whilst enduring a lecture from her well-meaning parents on the disaster that was her life. She phoned her mother back and told her that much though she would have loved to join them, she had viewings set up for tomorrow, so skipping off work was unfortunately not an option. They confirmed the arrangement to meet at her new flat at midday on Sunday. Then she flipped up the lid of her laptop and checked her first email, the usual ton of spam, a message asking if she would be interested in playing lacrosse next Wednesday, to which she replied an enthusiastic yes. No one had organised a game in over a year and she loved it. And another in advance warning of New Year's Eve party, which she logged on her calendar. Suddenly an email popped up. Red Westwood, you have new follower on Twitter. After 3 years on Twitter, she had a meagre, if respectable, 157 followers, despite following over 7,000 people herself, including Jonathan Ross, Stephen Fry, the Prime Minister, President Obama, and numerous other high-profile people around the world. Not that she worried about it, but it was, of course, always nice to have new followers. She clicked to open the link and read with dismay, "The Queen of Hearts is now following you." Chapter 58, Wednesday, 30th of October. After his interview with Red Westwood finished, Roy Grace needed no more convincing. He believed her and he felt her pain. He phoned Claire to tell her he would be delayed, but would get home as soon as he could. She sounded exhausted. "Please do, darling. Noel's been grisly all day. I think he's teething." Ignoring his guilt, he spent the next hour and a half in his office, first pulling a favour from Tony Case, the senior support officer responsible for Success House administration, getting him to clear major incident room 1, where there was a few team members of an inquiry which was winding down. Then he began a series of phone calls, putting together the team he needed and setting up the first brief meeting for 8:30 the following morning. On his drive home, shortly after 9, he continued making calls on his hands-free, and by the time he climbed out of his car still on the phone, he had the majority of people he wanted in place. He entered the gated courtyard of Claire's townhouse that he and Claire were sharing until their hope for move to the country within the next couple of months, if the purchase of the house went through okay. and he was cheered by a piece of good news he'd received late this afternoon. A phone call from the estate agent telling him that they had a prospective purchaser for his house where he lived with Sandy and were expecting an offer in the morning. He slipped the key in the lock and pushed the front door open. All those people who told him that having a baby would change his life were so right, he thought. Despite his and Cleo's best effort, it was inevitable, he realized, because of the enormity of the responsibility of the two of them now shared. Up until the last months of her pregnancy, when he came home from work, he would be greeted by the smell of scented candles, music playing, and Claire thrusting an ice-cold vodka martini into his hands, then kissing him passionately. Today the smell was different, an anodyne, milky smell of baby powder and freshly laundered nappies, which Cleo insisted on using, preferring them to the convenience of disposables. She sat in a loose smock on the sofa, breastfeeding Noah in front of the television and greeting him with a wan smile. "Hi, darling, how was your day?" she asked. He wrestled out of his coat, patted and excited Humphrey at the same time. "Okay, well, actually a bit shit. Got a new murder inquiry, which I could do without right now." Instantly her face dropped. "God, is that going to affect our—" "Absolutely not," he said, cutting her short in mid-sentence. "Nothing's going to affect Saturday or our honeymoon. How's the little fellow?" Noah's eyes were sucking away. "Okay for the moment, but he's been grizzly all day. With the combination feeding, I don't think we're going to get much sleep tonight. Maybe you should go in the spare room." He shook his head. "All for one and one for all." She grinned. "Did you get that from Glenn?" "Actually, no. The Three Musketeers is one of the few books I remember from childhood." He grinned, then paused to look at the television. "I need a drink. I'll put everything out for you." He blew her a kiss, went through into the kitchen and mixed himself a stiff vodka martini, then brought it back into the room and perched on the end of the sofa beside them. He took a sip and instantly craved a cigarette, but would wait until Noah was in bed. "If you need to postpone our honeymoon, darling, I'll understand," Claire said, "even though I've been expressing milk all week." "No way. I'll hate for Cassian Pugh to use this against you. Taking off in the middle of a murder inquiry. I can imagine him doing that." He shook his head. "Well, we're well into the investigation. I'm setting everything up, and Glenn is perfectly capable of running with it until I'm back. I'm not letting anything get in the way like I did previously with Sandy." The moment she had said the name, she regretted. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that." He shrugged. "That's history. We have our whole lives ahead of us, and I love you so damn much. I'm not going to repeat any mistakes, okay?" He looked at her with a big smile. She smiled back. "Are you still going to have your stag night?" "It's not exactly going to be a wild occasion. I'm going out for a couple of beers with Glenn and the team tomorrow night, then staying over with him again on Friday. It's meant to be bad luck for the groom to see the bride on the day of the wedding. It's going to be so good to have some time together alone," she said. "It is. We used to sleep on each other all the time, remember? Those showers we used to take, soaping each other. God, that made me so damn horny." "And me, I promise. Next we'll have showers every night. I'll massage you all over. I can't wait. I still fancy you, Rod Grace. I fancy you like crazy. I'm sorry if I've been too tired recently to show it. And right back at you, my lovely." He leaned over and kissed her. Noah stopped suckling and began crying. Chapter 59. Thursday, 31st of October. Red heard crying. Her eyes sprang open, straight into a dazzling beam of light burning into her retinas like a laser. She closed them, then opened them again, saw a face this time, Bryce, staring down at her. She lay frozen, staring back at him, staring into his eyes. She tried to speak, but her voice was muted with fear. She tried again, then again. Then finally she blurted out a feeble, "What do you want?" The light went out, and then suddenly she was staring into darkness, listening for footsteps, shaking in terror. Why Bryce in the room? Was Bryce in the room? She heard another cry in the darkness, a wail of pain, a howl, a long, tortured, high-pitched scream, the clank of a dustpan, two cats fighting, then the wail of a siren. "Police, please," brief. Then it stopped. The rattle of a taxi, the slam of a door, shouting, two drunks, a man and a potty-mouthed woman arguing. She hurling obscene insults. He stood back in broad Scouse accent. Why Bryce in the room? More people outside now, 2 floors below. All of them sounded drunk. One of them started singing "Rule Britannia." Another began shouting, "Seagulls, seagulls." Football supporters. She looked at the clock beside her. The luminous hand showed it was 2:18 a.m. "Seagulls. Screw seagulls. I never tried." More laughter. Drunks inflicted their hilarity on everyone sleeping around them. She was close enough to shout for help. Help from a bunch of drunks. Goosebumps pricked her body, ran up her legs, her midriff, her arms. White Bryce in here. She reached out her arm, careful not to knock over her water, found the lamp, found the switch, and pressed it. The small room flooded with weak light. She was alone. Her heart was pounding. She picked up her mobile phone from the bedside table, hovered her thumb over the speed dial button number 1 for PC Spoffet, then lay still listening. The arguing couple moved on, but the drunks remained, starting to sing again, their seagull supporters chant. She wanted to get out of bed and check the flat, but she was too afraid of stepping out of her bedroom door into the corridor, so instead she lay still listening to the drunks singing and ragging each other, listening for any sound in her flat beyond the bedroom, until suddenly she heard a male voice. 134 people are feared dead when a railroad bridge 100 miles north of Calcutta collapsed in what is reported to be one of India's worst ever rail disasters. Red rolled over and stared at the blinking light on her clock radio. It was just 6:30 a.m. Memories of the night came back, and relief flooded through her. Bryce shining the torch at her, staring down at her, had been a dream, that was all. She closed her eyes and half dozed, half listening to news as she did every weekday morning. 20 minutes later, she slipped out of bed, naked, and padded through into her bathroom, pushed open the sliding door that closed off the tiny loo, and peed. Then she went through into the kitchen to brew a cup of tea and prepare her breakfast of chopped up fruit and porridge, and instantly stopped in her tracks. Was her memory playing tricks? She thought back to last night. Her breakfast stuff from the morning had lain unwashed on the draining board. Additionally, she had left the packaging from the fish pie she microwaved in on the draining board, ready to throw it away in the morning. Along with the dishes she had used, the plates, the bowl for salad, and the empty low-fat fruit yogurt pot, they had gone. All the dishes are now clean and lying on the draining board. She opened the cupboard with the swing bin. The lid rose to reveal a fresh, unused black bin liner. Her stomach flipped. Fear washed through her. She turned and ran along the corridor on the front door, then stared for some moments, ensuring she was focused and not dreaming of the door. The serial chain was securely in place. Bryce could not have been here last night, could he? No way could he have let himself out of the front door with that safety chain still in place. It was too high for him to have jumped from a window. She hurried over to each window and turned and looked down to the faint breaking light. Not possible. He'd have to have left something behind if he had gone out of the window. A rope, a cord, a wire, something. But if not Bryce, who the hell had done the washing up, then emptied the bin? Had she done it herself? She knew she had drunk far too much last night. Did that explain it? That she had done all of that and forgotten in her drunkenness? She was so damn sure she had seen Bryce in the middle of the night. But the safety chain was still in place. No one could have come in through the front door, nor locked it behind them. So how could it have been? She had dreamed him, she thought. It was the only possible explanation. Chapter 60, Thursday to 31st of October. At a few minutes before 8:30 in the morning, carrying a mug of coffee, Roy Grace left his office and used his pass card to open the door to the major's crime suite. He walked along the corridor, the walls lined on both sides with notice boards pinned with crime scene photographs, charts, and newspapers and headlines from recent solved homicide, and entered Major Incident Room 1. MRI 1 was a spacious, modern, airy room, furnished with 3 large oval workstations around which his team were settling down. 3 whiteboards were fixed to the walls. One was stickered with crime scene photographs from Haywood's Heath golf course with arrows and handwriting in red, black, and green marker pen. The second displayed a series of portrait photographs of Bryce Laurent. On the third was an association chart of Bryce Laurent, as well as 2 photographs of Red Westwood. One of these were in Brighton, right in front of the Brighton Shellfish and Oyster Bar. The other was of her on terrace overlooking the Mediterranean with a glass of champagne in her hand. Someone's mobile was ringing with an old-fashioned bell tone. There was a smell of eggs and bacon. Guy Batchelor hunched over a hot breakfast roll from Trudy's Mobile Cafe, a short walk from the road, as Roy Grace sniffed it. He felt a pang of hunger. The bowl of porridge he gulped down at 5:30 a.m. before leaving home seemed a long time ago now. D.S. Bellamoy was seated with the ever-present box of Maltese in front of her, studying the case notes that had been circulating in advance. Norman Potting sauntered in, holding a leaden carton of coffee, and Grace clocked the secretive grin between him and Bella. He smiled to himself, happy to see lost soul Bella at last looking happy. He was pleased for Norman too. The old Sweat's private life had been a series of disasters, particularly the nightmare of the grasping Thai bride of a few months back. 2 young, bright detective constables, Alec David and Jason Alexander, were present, along with his other stalwarts, D.S. John Exton, recently promoted, D.S. Guy Batchelor, and crime scene manager David Green. The others in the room include Inspector James Biggs from the Road Policing Unit, Holmes Analyst Keely Scanlon, researcher Becky Davis, Chief Fire Investigating Officer Tony Gurr, and forensic podiatrist Hayden Kelly, whose forensic gait analysis instruments had been invaluable in both of Roy Grace's most recent cases. D.I. Gordon Graham, a specialist from the Police Financial Investigating Unit, and Ray Packham. Grace waited until a further two DCs, Francesca Jameson and Liz Seward, whom he had requested this morning to help on the outside inquiry team, had entered, then seated himself on his own workstation with his policy book and briefing notes prepared by his assistant in front of him. He glanced at the notes and opened his policy book and made a note of the date and time. "Good morning, everyone," he said. "Welcome to the first briefing of Operation Advark, the investigation into the suspected murder of Dr. Carl Thomas Murphy, whose charred body was found on Hayward Heath Golf Course on the morning of the last Thursday, 24th October. Did it count as our movable obstruction, Chief, or did the players get a free drop?" Norman Podding said with a chortle. There was a few other titters of laughter, instantly silenced by Grace Glare. "Thank you, Norman." She save the golfing jokes for another time, okay? "Sorry, Chief." Podding turned towards Bella as if for approval, but she studiously ignored him by reaching forward and helping herself to a chocolate. Distracted for a moment, Roy Grace noticed the large print from the card and film the ant and the aardvark, with a bright blue, gormless-looking aardvark standing erect that some wag had taped to the inside of the door. It had become a success. Police tradition for a picture mimicking the tide of a major crime operation to be stuck there. This one had appeared faster than usual. "Before I start," Roy Grace said, "I should let you all know that I will be absent from this Saturday until next Friday morning, 8th of November, from my marriage to Claire and our brief honeymoon. Dear Branson will deputise for me during this period." Glenn, 2 seats away from him, raised his hand in acknowledgement. The detective superintendent pointed at the whiteboard on which there was a series of photographs of Bryce Laurent. In one, he wore a striped t-shirt and shorts. In another, he was dressed in a felt graduation cap and ermine gown. Another was a U.S. penitentiary photograph of him against a high ruler with an ID number tag around his neck. "This man is our prime suspect and we need to find him urgently. We're also linking him to a number of suspected arson attacks in the city during the past week. We believe his real name to be Thomas William Chauveau. This was the name under which he spent 3 years in a Philadelphia state penitentiary for an assault on his girlfriend. According to the detective I spoke to, he beat her up pretty bad. We're not exactly dealing with Mr. Nice Guy here, okay?" Then he looked down at his notes. "Thomas Chauveau has any number of possible aliases. His last name one is Bryce Laurent. Previous one include Pat Tolley, Derek Jordan, Michael Andrews, and Paul Riley. Thanks to the cooperation of the Philadelphia police, we have this fingerprint and DNA. He's smart, he dresses well, speaks with a classy voice, and is a regular charmer in every sense. He could be anywhere in the world right now, but for reasons that will become self-evident, I believe he's staying local and ready to strike at any moment." He looked at his notes again. "What we do know about Bryce Laurent, we'll refer to him by this name to avoid confusion, is that he has worked as a close magician. He has extensive knowledge of pyrotechnics, and he is a total fantasist. He passed himself off in the US separately as an American Airlines captain and an investment banker, and in the UK as an air traffic controller at Gatwick Airport. Under one of his aliases, Pat Tolley, he was granted a fireworks manufacturing license here in the UK, but we checked out their address, an industrial site on farmland in Suffolk, and he's long gone from there. We also know he's a talented cartoonist." He sipped some water. "I've again engaged the service of forensic behaviour psychologist Dr. Julius Proudfoot. Some of you will remember he worked with us. Very effective on Operation Houdini, the Schumann case. He'll be joining future briefings. It is Dr. Proudfoot's view that Laurent has an immensely high opinion of himself, that he is displaying all the qualities of a classic narcissist. I wrote down this from him. Narcissism is a highly dangerous trait which stems often from people who have been unloved in childhood, compensating later in life with grandiose self-belief, arrogance, a tendency to make unreasonable demands, unstable temper, and violent mood swings, and very significantly and dangerously that familiar attribute of the psychopath, a lack of empathy. Grace then brought his team up to speed on Bryce Laurent's relationship with Red Westwood and what was known so far about the fires. When he had finished, he began to detailed the lines of inquiry for his team. First up, he delegated DC's Jack Alexander and Alex Davis to work on the outside inquiry team, interviewing all members of Hayward's Heath Golf Club who were present either the afternoon or evening of 23rd of October or the morning of 24th of October. Next, he said, I need a list of all the non-members who were at Hayward's Heath Golf Club that day. Anyone from the general public who paid a green fee or maybe bought something in the pro shop. All the staff who were there that day. What tradesmen made deliveries. And this is a big task. We need to find out what the mobile company and masts are in the vicinity, speaking on the telecom unit, and arrange to secure phone dumps for the relevant time. It's possible the offender phoned someone to say job done. If so, who? Norman Potting raised his hand and Grace nodded at him. Are you going to try Crime Watch, Chief? Yes, we have contacted them and they're interested, but they are not on air again for 2 weeks. We are also planning to issue a reward. He turned to DS Extant John. I'm tasking you with managing the intelligence, which should include what we might get from our covert human intelligence sources. Next he looks at Potting. Norman, we have Bryce Lawrence's last known mobile phone number, which was 02. Go through the telecoms unit and see if you can get a plot of his movement and also find out crucially whether the number is still active. He sipped some coffee and studied his notes again for a moment. Then he pointed at the 2 photographs of Red Westwood. I've had these analysed. They were taken with a Motorola digital camera. We are able to extrapolate the exact location, the time of the photograph, and the distance the photographer was from his or her subject. Miss Westwood told me that Bryce Lawrence is a keen photographer. She has dozens taken by him, not just of her, but of landscapes around Sussex and elsewhere. Have her albums look at and see if you can establish a favoured geographical location for him. Potting nodded compliantly. Grace next looked at DS Moy. Bella, if Bryce Lawrence has been responsible for these fires, it's possible he might have burned himself in the process. I'm tasking you with checking all hospitals in the surrounding areas to see what burns emission they have had in the A&E departments and whether the dates coincide with what we know about him. Then he turned to the forensics podiatrist Hayden Kelly, who was standing a few metres away, facing the room, waiting patiently. Hayden, thanks for joining us at such short notice. The night Dr. Murphy died was a clear sky, but there had been heavy rain the previous 48 hours. I'm told there are some good footprints. That is correct, yes, Kelly said, but so far I'm unable to obtain a match at any of the databases. But you can still pick out the person who left the footprint in a crowd from his gate. Roy Grace quiz. If there is a video footage of the person, then yes, with a high percentage of accuracy. Grace turned to the financial investigator. D.R. Gordon Graham. Suspects were commonly traceable through their finance. Most people today had credit card and debit cards. All money movements located and dated them, and as additional help for the police, few established still took cash. D.R. Graham outlined what inquiries he would be getting his star financial investigator Emily Gaylor to undertake. Suddenly Grace's phone, which he had switched to silent, vibrated. The caller's identity did not show on the display. Ordinarily, during a briefing meeting, he would take no calls as a matter of principle, but something told him this was urgent. He was right. It was Constable Rob Spofford, and something had happened. His voice sounded tight with anxiety. He signalled to Glenn Branson to take up the meeting and step away, holding his phone to his ear. Thanks for listening.